Welcome to Mermaid Tales. I'm Cassandra, your host, and the founder of Be a Mermaid. This is our space to share real stories, soul chats, and those deep, magical moments that remind you of who you truly are. Let's dive in and flow together. I am beyond excited for my guest today. She is the fabulous Virginia, the founder of Sheroes Entertainment, based in Los Angeles. Thank you so much for joining today.
I am so excited to talk to you. I've been looking forward to this for literally weeks, and we finally actually get to connect. So thank you so much for having me on. I can't wait to talk about all things mermaid and really just catch up.
Absolutely. So Virginia and I met completely out of the blue. The stars aligned in August this summer, going to the Labyrinth Ball in LA. There had been apparently this amazing mermaid event you put on. I'd love to hear about how you got inspired to do that at the fabulous, pool at the Biltmore.
Absolutely. So for anyone that hasn't heard about it, there is a massive Labyrinth Masquerade Ball that happens every year in Los Angeles, California. That's going to be the largest masquerade ball anywhere in the North America, the third largest masquerade ball in the entire world. It's run by an incredible team of artists and visionaries and has been going, I want to say, about 25 years now. Now, I have been going to it, I want to say about 22 years. So I've been going a very, very long time. And along the way, met some truly magical, inspiring people and have been able to volunteer and help in many different areas, including decorating or costumes, or because I love water safety and carrying feathers and mermaids so much, also the mermaid swim, the unofficial mermaid swim at Labyrinth Masquerade in the historic Biltmore Pool, which was built by the same people that designed Hearst Castle. It is magical, it is open to all, and it's an incredible way of meeting some new friends with a very similar interest.
One of the things I absolutely, there's so many things I loved about the ball, and I'm so excited to be going next year. And we're planning our group costume, which is going to be mermaid themed. Yeah, I know. I'm so excited. So, feel free to join our group and, share your, sure. Virginia had the most stunning pale pink late, I would say 1880s. If I was looking at your bustle correctly, I'm a little bit of a fashion nerd. So like I got very excited to see a second series bustle. And with the most beautiful sculpted shell, capelet, I don't even know, but it was just the architectural element of it was fabulous. And I literally spotted you across the room and I went, I need to go compliment her on her dress. And that's the most magical thing about the ball, as I'm sure you are, is it's all these people who have taken such pride and excitement around their costuming. And like we all get really excited by each other and like we all want to know and learn and grow and understand how like the different techniques that went on. Even if you just bought a costume, like people are just excited to be there and share this and they're so open. And I think that that's such a really beautiful thing that doesn't happen often in this world. And so you have this, consortium of artists and musicians and creatives in all different fashions, and also the people who are just want to be inspired and want to do the inspiring. And so I feel so grateful that I had this opportunity to go. Funny enough, I'm sure we all add things onto our social media at different points. I'm like, oh, this looks cool. I'd like to go to this. I added this like 5 years ago, and then, the universe provided. So I was so excited when we were supposed to end up at the mermaid event. And sadly, you know how it goes with those very late nights. The morning didn't work out the way we thought it would, but Ayla and Heidi met you earlier and were raving about you and were telling me I really need to meet you and potentially connect and see if there is an opportunity for us to partner on something going forward. And I was like, that sounds amazing. And then met you. Well, I just girl crushed on you on the other side of the room. I had to come introduce myself. So thank you for being just so amazing and getting to connect with you. And I'm just so glad for you to be here.
I'm so grateful, and I'm really glad that all of you were able to come out because, again, like I am one tiny, tiny volunteer piece of that entire incredible endeavor. And the fact that you were able to experience that, the mermaid swim is a very small part. I hope to grow it in the future. And the executive team at Labyrinth has been so gracious and generous and really understand there's so many different areas of fantasy and that so many different people do want to bond over commonality, and that we are so in need of that across the world right now, about just being inspired by wonder and joy and being able to meet a new friend just because there's a conversation. It's okay to randomly go up and talk to a stranger. Like, this particular event is really, really good at that, and the fact you and your friends were able to experience it made me so happy, because they were just the most joyful team, and I was so, so happy when they showed up, and then all of a sudden, I see this amazing thing across the room too, and it turns out it was all of you. I had no idea what to do with myself because I was so entranced by the level of creativity and imagination and also the nod to obviously literature that all of you put together. So I can't wait to see what you do next year. I know it's going to be amazing. Yeah, I encourage everyone to come out and see the event. It's truly beautiful. The creative team is just so gifted and the fact that they do this for the world, it just makes my heart sing.
It is so phenomenal. I mean, the creativity of the sets they design. I love how there's the traditional dancing, then just more if you just want to rock out dancing. They have all the little photography areas. Then you have the artists who are actually selling their wares. And then on top of it, I'm a huge architecture nerd, Virginia, and
Mhm.
that the Biltmore is one of the most beautifully architected hotels I've ever seen. And you go in there, and even without all this other magical things going on, you're just like, oh my gosh, the vaulted ceilings, the carved interiors, and then you get into that amazing pool area. Before we went, I was looking up and I was like, I have to see this pool because I've seen it in so many movies over the years. And I was
Mhm.
just so excited about it. And it was just as exciting. And I mean, it would have been more exciting had I actually made it to the mermaid event. But, I'm grateful that I got down there, that it all worked out. And it was, I will say, a long travel back. So I'm East Coast based. So I'm out of DC. And so I had a flight out at 7:30 the next morning after the last night.
I'm so sorry because
I
that's a
was
very long night. I mean, the nice thing about Labyrinth Masquerade is any guest will know you just can't stop partying. And it's so sneaky because they are, again, for anyone that's never been there, it's 3 levels of masquerade. And we're talking incredible couture costumes, fashion designers, as well as incredible models from around the world flying in for this. So it is some of the most amazing people watching you in your life. But they start at the lower level, and they'll close the room, and then everyone moves to the second level, and they'll close the room, and then they'll go to the top level, and then they'll start making their way down all these incredible ballrooms on the top level, just pushing people more towards the thing until it's about probably 1 or 2 a.m., and then they'll actually turn the lights on and, play some less than appealing music to encourage people to leave. But that is a long night of a lot of dancing, a lot of dragging karaoke, if you happen to see that, a lot of fortune telling and watching magic, and it is so much. I can't imagine then for anyone that also is not from around here, downtown LA is not near the airport. It is a very long drive. So the fact you also did that, I mean, hands down, you are one brave soul.
it definitely was a reminder I'm not as young as I think I am at times because I'm not saying I've never been a morning person. I'm never a morning flight person. So in my regular job, I travel all the time for work. This is actually the first time I've been home for a month since 2020,
Oh my
which is
gosh. Wow.
yeah. Yeah. Things have worked out for that to happen for a number of reasons. But so, like, I travel a lot and I still avoid morning flights, but this was the only direct flight back to the East Coast. And when you
That
don't
makes
want to
sense.
spend, all day flying, but will I never do that? In theory, I have not booked the flight for next year. Maybe I'll even fly out Monday. Maybe that'll make it a little bit easier. But yeah, we finished at 3 and then we went back. I was staying across the street and my friends were staying at the
Mhm.
Biltmore, and I went to, hang with them for a bit. We had brought in onesies to hang out in.
Nice.
Yeah. And so I have this crazy like elephant one because I did like a onesie pub crawl in DC years ago. And so I just love it because you got the big elephant ears and whatnot, and I got the snout and whatnot. And so I'm hanging out in this. And then I was like, I had to make the decision of either I was going to stay up and just wait till my flight, or should I take a nap and, go back to my room and be slightly responsible? And I had to make the decision to be slightly responsible. Mind you, responsible at this point, we got back, we changed, it's almost 4 a.m. And I'm like, okay, I can get an hour and a half of sleep in.
Oh my
So
goodness. Oh
yeah.
my. Well, I'm so grateful that you and your friends came, and again, you got to see a little bit of the mermaid swim, which again is open to. It's an unofficial swim as of this year. Hopefully, in the future, it will become official. I'm working on some of the executive producers on that. really hope they support that move because they do see that people enjoy it and they do love people immersing themselves, as they call it, in the realms the entire weekend because they know how much this inspires and connects. And I think that, just from an outside perspective, I am so grateful to them for doing this so all of us can experience that joy. But do take the next day off. I do not do work the next day after Labyrinth ever. I actually block it off a entire year in advance with my work, and I say I'm not going to be functional. So don't do that. But do
Yeah,
definitely bring
yeah.
some really comfortable shoes. And, sometimes also, people also traveling in from the mermaid world, if you are coming into Labyrinth and there is an unofficial mermaid swim, or perhaps in the future it becomes official, you can also reach out to Sheroes Entertainment many times. We have the largest rental stock of mermaid costuming and wardrobe west of the Mississippi. That means that many times we can also outfit a person from out of town should they want to actually be there and they are, say, at the Biltmore, they're part of that experience so that we don't have to travel with a wet tail. We're really, really open to helping MERS from other areas. Well, obviously, it's dependent on what our stock is on hand, but
Yeah.
if we look at some of our fin funds example in our line for our mermaid school, we have everything up to a double XL and everything down to a child 6. If you're flexible in what you wear, we probably can help you so that way you can have a little extra space in that suitcase for hopefully some of the Mazer vendor wares and a couple extra accessories for yourself.
Excuse me, as my mouth is literally on the ground as you were explaining that because I did not look that up because oh my gosh. So as somebody who I've been very lucky that I've gone to travel to some amazing locations and use my tail, that wet tail thing is a serious issue because you have to be like, okay, is there like how much will it dry for those of you who are new to traveling with tails? Obviously, you want your tail to fully dry because otherwise, whether you're talking about silicone or a fabric or even a neoprene, like you don't want it to grow mold at the end of the day. And also, you want to make sure if you're in the ocean that it's not having other things growing in it. And so the question of the wet tail is always something you really have to consider. I was just came back from Greece, Virginia. Actually, Heidi, Ayla, and I all were there, and we mermaided while we were there. But we didn't have as much time as we would have thought to do it. And on our last day, we are sitting on the beach. We're staying very close to the beach, like not even a 5 minute walk, and we're just debating. Okay, is the tail going to have enough time to dry? And we thought about it for 30 minutes and we were just like for this was the one time Ayla and I did not have a tail bag with us. So
Oh, no.
if my yeah, exactly. We actually put everything into one suitcase, which
Oh,
is amazing at that. Ayla and I, not so much. I usually have my scuba bag is my tail bag. So like there is a level it might dry depending, but if you're talking about folding that thing up and popping it back in your suitcase, that was a no-go. So I think that is so amazing to have that opportunity to help support MERS and also take frankly very heavy luggage off their, plate. So tell me about how you started Sheroes. Like I would love to know what inspired you and then how you've built the business.
sure. That's a great question. I actually had started Sheroes back in 2011, not intentionally at all. It's one of those things where sometimes you open yourself up to possibility and life will find you a path. And I think that's really, really what happened with Sheroes, where I just put it out to the universe where I was looking for a little bit of a change. I had originally worked in Renaissance fairs as a female jouster and a knight. So actually on horses, armor, that entire thing. And there was a certain ceiling at that time for women. And I'm really grateful that it appears to be less now. But, some of it still is in place. And unless you happen to be married to somebody or you're the daughter of somewhere, or you just want to go on the road for very low pay to no pay for a very expensive time and you have the independent funds to do that, you're just not going to really do that program, which is very, very different traditionally from men who have a very easy time with medieval times. They can go in, they can get full pay, they can be trained from the ground up in swords and horses and everything. And that's just not an opportunity for women, unfortunately, still. So at that time, I was looking for something very different, and I had been absolutely blessed with meeting Brenda Stump, who's an incredible underwater photographer in Southern California. She has an incredibly unique theme and vibe that I've not seen anywhere replicated. It is organic, it's inspired by the old masters, it's inspired by Art Nouveau and Pre-Raphael art. It's very distinctive. You can see some of her work. And she had asked me once upon a time to go and put my armor in water, like you do. So I had done a full underwater shoot of Joan of Arc for her right before my armor had to be upgraded anyway. So it was a really good timing, stainless steel. It was already going to be cleaned, no problem. And I was crazy enough that as a scuba diver, even though this is way before any of the safety standards really, to my knowledge, experience in the industry were really more public,
Mhm.
that I was able to work with a safety diver. We shot underwater in a suit of armor, which does not swim. You walk. And we were able to get this iconic photo that was very well received. We had so much fun together that when a trip to Mexico came up, she wanted to shoot some personal projects. And because she's just very generous person with her time and her creativity, she said to myself and one of the other models, if we had anything we just like to try or maybe bring along, we could do that too. And I just thought that being a mermaid would be fun. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. There were no rental facilities. There were none of the major tail manufacturers that we have now that are brands you can order online with a credit card. None of that existed. There were very, very few people that did this. So I actually started having to build my own concepts because it was so exclusive. I couldn't get training. I was not in Florida. I wasn't near Waukewashi Springs, which has incredible shows. They've had it for years. But if you're not one of their girls, you're not going to get that. So I had enlisted a high performance swimming diving coach to learn
Mhm.
monofin technique. I worked with silicone prosthetics workers, costumers, an incredibly amazing team of both men and women that just our mission was let's figure it out. And how do we do this? Because there were no manuals. There were no mermaid mentorship chats that I know of at that time, nothing. And at the end of it, we built a custom silicone tail with a lot of fabric extensions, and it ended up being a mermaid portfolio shoot of all things with myself and one of the other models who was just the most amazing artist. And I came back with a portfolio. I was at a career change impasse with the night thing, and I was like, well, I like fantasy, and I really, really love bringing people together and making people happy. What if I tried this? Because there were some incredible aspirational names in the market already at that time. As an example, Mermaid Melissa, Mermaid
Mhm.
Hannah, Mermaid Linden. Those were the three big names at that time, and they were doing extraordinary things. I was definitely not anything like them. I'm obviously not blonde, but
Yeah.
also simply did not have their backgrounds. Each of those women is unique and special in their very own ways. But I did like showmanship and I really liked kids and I was really good at business and thinking outside the box. So I started as a solo act and within I'd say the first 1 or 2 years, I was already onboarding team members. I had onboarded the first openly gay member of the LGBT community as a man. He was my first hire. And then the second was actually this amazing African American woman from the Caribbean who is just a joy. Anytime I get to see her, she was actually at Labyrinth. I don't know if you saw Caribbean Pearl. Very
What was she wearing?
Caribbean Pearl at the time.
Yeah.
She when I worked with her, again, this was over 10 years ago when Sheroes first started, she was in
Yeah.
this really neat, almost splash-inspired tail. It was a lot of oranges, but the
Okay.
thing that I always was amazed and struck by with Pearl is Pearl has the uncanny ability to connect with and appreciate and be present with anyone in the world. And she has this inner regalness, which I find so incredibly inspiring and so beautiful. No matter when I see her, it's almost like it'll be a 2 years sometimes. And I'll see her again and I'm like, "Ah, man, she just doesn't lose it. She has this inner sparkle and this inner charisma that you just can't manufacture. She's just a gift. And it was just really neat where I had met her so early on. Those were my first two people on my team.
Yeah.
And then past that point, just kept evolving, figuring out what the market wanted. Expanded my team. The height of mermaids really surged up. And so at one time, we also just started buying tails because there were a lot of really incredible people from all kinds of backgrounds in this world that at that point in time, again, this is pre-fabric tail construction. This is really early on. They would love to do it. They had something that really shone in them, no matter who they were, and they just couldn't afford a silicone tail.
Yeah.
So Shiro started buying tails to give more people opportunities and then be able to have them in front of the world as people that could be light bringers, people that could bring the world together, people that could, you know, push creativity forward in a new, incredible way just because they themselves had such talent. And then, you go through a lot of ups and downs in business, and you learn so many lessons and so many incredible experiences you've never dreamed of. And, here we are. And I work with Hollywood, and we just wrapped up Christina Aguilera's party for Halloween. And we do rentals for film sets. We just did another commercial last week. But then we also still have the core of the business, which is people that are incredible role models to children and bringing families together and teaching that new generation how to bond over commonality and how much fun it is to have a friend. Even if you didn't think you might be friends with them, you never know until you say, "Would you like to come play?"
Yeah. I think, I feel like I talk about this all the time on the podcast, but play is such a thing, such a huge thing, especially as adults, and we forget about it. We forget, that opportunity where it's not something where it has to be perfect. We can just come and arrive as we are, whether it's tiny little facets of the world or like the big expanse, and the opportunity to connect with each other on that shared commonality of just like, I don't know, let's figure it out and let's dive into our imaginations. I was watching something really interesting. It was talking about the gentleman who basically is biohacking his body
Yeah.
recently. Yeah. Brian,
Yeah,
anyway.
I know the person you're talking about.
Yeah, and he apparently did this study recently that was proving out basically how mushrooms differently impact your brain. And as he took them, they had all these sensors on his brain, and basically about an hour in, it shifted into basically this area where it opened up and like removed all the prefrontal cortex when it comes to, we'll say, the if we're to going into Freud terms of like the super ego of like that governing body and all the restrictions that comes with it for how we as adults have to experience the world and society, and how then the back of his brain lit up and about how you experience color and music and play and whatnot, and completely shifted the dynamic for basically how we experience the world if we're adults versus how we experience it if we're children. That's the really beautiful thing about play. You don't have to go into an altered state to do that. You can just arrive as is, and you can play, yourself, whether it's your experience Mermaid Tale first time. I know when I first got mine, I've loved Mermaid since I was a kid, Virginia, and it was something where I was a late when I say social media, I mean Instagram person. I didn't get it to like 2017, 2018, and I wanted to be very intentional with my feed. And so I started seeing these tales. And I'm like, oh my gosh, but I never just, how your business started. Tales were not accessible to most people whatsoever. It was something you saw and say, like, Charmed, where Alyssa Milano was in that mermaid tale in season 6, and you're just like, that's so cool, or whatever example you want to give. And so once I realized you could buy your own tale, I got one for my 30th birthday, and I will never forget unboxing it. It was one of the Finfolk one, and the old school Finfolk one, because it was 2019. So no stretch in this thing. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get in this. And I literally put it on in the middle of my living room with the little shell top I bought. And I'm just standing there and I have the biggest smile on my face. Like, I'm not anywhere where I'm actually going to get to go play, but I just sat there and kind of like enjoyed being like fully immersed in this experience. Even that is a level of play, to live outside your own and your own circumstances and then getting to play with others. Like, I love the fact that you bring magic to the world, that you're enabling so many people to step outside of themselves to say, let's see what magic we can create. Let's see what our imaginations can spark. And oh my God, we can do that with other people. That is just amazing. So thank you. That's like, you are a light bringer. That is a very hard task, I'd say, first and foremost. Not a lot of people are up for it because that takes an immense amount of energy, that takes an immense amount of care, and immense amount of empathy for the world we're living in to want to bring that. So thank you for that, magic and uniqueness that your light is bringing.
That's so kind. Like, thank you, because that, when you're in business a long time, it's not about the money. Like, let's be real. Despite what 10 years ago people were saying mermaids could make, mermaids don't make that. Mermaid companies don't make that. We have a lot. If you're doing a business ethically and legally in the United States, especially California,
Yeah.
there are so many taxes and insurance requirements and fees, and it is an insurmountable task. So you have to find what's going to keep you going. And for me, I just want to make the world a better place. I want to give people that sense of hope and that sense of wonder. And I
Mhm.
do that again through my team. I have remarkably talented people on my team, but just enabling them to have the opportunity as actors to support their acting career and then to go out and do good. Like,
Yeah.
for me, that's what it's all about at this point. Of course, I like the creativity. But, at a certain point, you're like, okay, why are you staying in this game? And it just feels so good. And you just hope that you're inspiring that next group of people that 20 years down the line, they might be the volunteer at the aquarium. They might be on the coastal commission. They might be that new science teacher that makes it really, really fun. Or they might just be a really good person that's able to talk to others and remind them it's okay and that
Yeah,
everyone can be seen and everyone can be safe and everyone can be authentic. And that no matter who you are, you bring something really, really good to this world.
absolutely. And you're also a mermaid instructor, if I recall correctly.
Patty, mermaid instructor trainer.
Oh my goodness. You have to be one of like a handful then in the US
Yes.
being an instructor trainer. So tell me about what that journey looked like.
Absolutely. So the Patty Mermaid Instructor Program, Sheroes Entertainment owns a brand called LA Mermaid School, which is a mermaid training program that offers training in Los Angeles. It's been going for a very long time before Patty ever had a program or much less anything. I believe at the time it was founded, there was only one other mermaid school, and it was in could be wrong about this. I believe it's the Philippines. I think that they had one, but I'd never been to it, didn't know anything about it. I just had seen it. One of my lifeguards on my team at the time had suggested that we should do mermaiding as a school because
Yeah.
people were so interested that they were probably going to get in trouble. And like it's not as easy as it looks when it's done well. So listening to my lifeguard staff at that time, we developed LA Mermaid School in the first mermaid training program in this region that I know of. I believe Wiki Wachee Springs before anyone comments about Wiki Wachee Springs. I know they're private. You can't just go to Wiki Wachee, say, hey, train me as a mermaid. That's not going to happen. So this was the first public one that I know of in the United States that is in the contemporary area. If anyone has heard of anything more historical, let me know. I'm sure you will. But transparency aside, I believe we were the first in the United States and probably about like number two in the world with, again, the Philippines, I believe, had set the first one up. But with that, the foundation of that was let's again try to help our community. Let's try to keep people safe. We don't want drownings. Drowning is a huge issue, and especially children in America. I believe it's in the top four of the reasons why kids unintentionally die. It is a big concern. There's a new shiny thing. Everyone wants to be a mermaid, especially kids. And if you're not trained properly, you can get in serious trouble. My lifeguard staff and I had actually teamed on bringing in the best practices of lifeguarding because of the Red Cross standards and trying to use a lot of their protocols, combined with what we had available with apnea at the time, and also some swim safety and swim instructor stuff because I had some water safety instructors on staff at that time. And that's how we built LA Mermaid School. It came from a position of safety and functionality. And then we pulled in a lot of amazing stuff because I love history. I have a extensive book collection and library that I pull from, and I really like doing research because, again, go figure, the person that used to be a knight likes history. I dig deep into American culture and history from Chicago Square, from Coney Island, from many other places, and I started reading the source documents of the creation of synchronized swimming in America that then became a international sport. And reading some of the original memoirs and books written by the women that created that sport also heavily influenced some of the patterns we were doing in LA Mermaid School before any dive agency anywhere had anything. After doing that for several years, and we trained a lot of actors and actresses and made people safe, et cetera, again, it's more of a community service brand that
Mhm.
also serves the film industry. Then Patty started the program as well as Nowie and SSI.
Mhm.
And it just made sense. I mean, we'd already been running a mermaid school. I was already a lifeguard at that time. I was already I believe at that time I was also, I'd already accomplished my PADI dive master certification. And I also believe at that time I was serving on the local search and rescue team. And I went through the entire vetting process, did all my portfolio work, resume work, certifications. Patty does, especially for the mermaid instructor trainers, especially when I believe I was number two in North America. I believe there was one woman down in perhaps the Caribbean. I could be wrong. Patty could actually verify that, yes or no. But I think I was in the first two for the region in the area that was, private, independent, not a Patty representative. And they were wonderful. And I really appreciated how much thoroughness they put into reviewing the application and asking the good questions because it showed me that they really did care also like I do about safety and
Yeah.
encouraging the sport to grow, but with awareness about the risks and also the rewards that are potential in it. After I did that, periodically definitely teach. I really love teaching Mermaid. I also love teaching Mermaid Instructor. It's one of my favorite courses to teach when it happens.
Oh my goodness. You have seen so much during your time and being such, a person on the forefront of it. What would you say is something that has struck you differently in the first 5 years versus the most recent 5 years?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. I love that question. And no one's actually ever asked me that before. So I really like that, Cassandra. When we're talking about the first 5 years, I would describe it in the mermaid industry as almost a gold rush, where it is a frontier style where everyone is learning how to blaze the trails. Obviously, again, giving very much deserved credit to the incredible women that came before me, both, in private corporations like Wikiwachi or Melissa or Lyndon or Hannah, etc. When you are, again, it's not common. You have to really innovate. It's a stage of innovation and trailblazing. And also hype, mostly due to those three women and others across the country and West Coast. So normally will credit more West Coast ladies, but there had gotten so much hype, especially with Hannah Fraser. The people were going gangbusters for this. And it was really a trend, huge trend. Just the probably in equivalent modern K-pop Demon Hunters.
Yeah.
It was the K-pop Demon Hunters at that point in time where every kid wanted it, everyone wanted their pool party. And now it's been really neat because any kind of trend goes through an amazing product cycle where you have that rise up of the entrepreneurs and the people that are thinking about how do you make it, what do you call it, what are the puns we use. I actually create a lot of the puns that are used contemporarily in the market, or also
Yeah.
some of the water rescue situations you see at aquariums now. Most people don't know I ever did that, but I know where I did it and I'll see it and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm glad you're doing that. That's awesome. But now it's stabilized and now we're on the step down where there's still interest in
Mhm.
mermaids, but it's now very much evolved. It's gone more into, you know, the woman that always wanted to try it, or alternately the 5-year-old girl that dreams of mermaids because they love H2O or some of the Netflix series, etc. And now, because there has been so much amazing work done by so many incredible individuals across the world in mermaiding, in competitions and artistic design and tail manufacturers and makeup and SFX methodologies, we have so much content. Now it's almost a era of curation and letting the voices that really care about this now art form, which it has become, to weed out what no longer suits and figure out how do we maintain this in art? How is it now enhanced as an art? And how can we all, again, respect different voices and collaborate to bring it even better so it doesn't die off, but instead it becomes this mainstay that people can respect and admire and enjoy for decades to come.
Absolutely. And it's so funny having only really been watching the mermaid community since 2017 and watching the explosion at it. So I've actually had the privilege to meet Hannah. I went to her
Yes, she's
retreat.
amazing.
She is in Bali 2 years ago. And actually, that's how I met Ayla. She and I both were at it and we were roommates. But Hannah, her energy is just so amazing. And her wanting to share this with the world and with her beautiful light and how she approaches it and further with her ocean conservation. It's really astounding. And I think this is one of the things that people forget. Like, to help the world and to say do one good thing. It doesn't have to be this big thing. It doesn't have to be what everybody else is doing. You can make it your own in whatever way that means. And if we had more people looking to do that on making that type of
Mm.
really beautiful impact, I think we'd be living in a beautiful world, more beautiful world. We're living in a beautiful world today.
The concept that creativity and originality have a really important place in the modern era. It is so tempting to go on social media or go to a con or something and you see the thing that
Yeah.
the in group is using or doing, or you don't know where you're starting. So you go on everyone else's website and you copy them. Like this has happened to us. We have to send notifications pleasantly to people periodically about you can't plagiarize. You're not doing that work. Don't take credit for that work. But then there are those outliers, and I love the outliers because that's where you really get good, interesting things. And as an example, I would cite a particularly well-known name, and that would be Mermaid Echo and
Okay.
their work with sturgeon. I think Mermaid Echo is a remarkable voice. in the mermaid and merperson community. And Echo is also a PADI mermaid instructor trainer. I have been very lucky to see them do presentations and training seminars, and their voice is so unique in artistry, but also genuine devotion to sturgeon conservation. I don't know that Echo even thought sturgeon would be in their life, but it is. And their work with the sturgeon is really helping that species to survive because it's coming from a genuine place of genuine interest. It's not just trying to look good, it is actually, I care about this. And this is something I want to bring into my art, as well as being an artist in themselves. But outliers like that, I get so excited by because when you've also been in the mermaid industry a very long time, you have seen a lot. And at a certain point, you are saying, show me something new. So
Yeah.
showing something new that's good, because
Yep.
anyone can show something new that's wacky or original. Like that's not hard.
Yeah.
Good and streamlined and trained and elegant and clever,
Yeah.
those things get me really excited. Whenever I see that, I'm the biggest fan of whoever that person is because I so love that they are stepping outside the norm. They're taking that extra step. There's a quote, I don't know if you've heard about it, The Man in the Arena, about, you might want to look it up. It's basically a quote where it's better to be the man in the arena that fails than to be anyone in the grandstands, is the gist of it. Very gladiator. And I love that concept about the man, woman, person in the arena, about those people take that extra leap to just do something different and dive in and bring in all of their outside knowledge too, not just what mermaids are saying should be done, but what do they think?
Yeah.
What does that creature look like to them? What is that mannerism to them? What is that speech pattern? What is that, way of communicating with an audience? Like that is so good. That's a level of artist for me. And I really respect and admire artists. And I'm grateful that there are some outliers. Again, I would say Echo is one of those people that I have utmost respect for in their work, but that outlier that says, let's do something neat. And we're not going to do something you've ever seen before, but if you like it, you're going to love this.
I think so funny about kind of going back on that comment of being the man in the arena versus people in the stands. And I'm sure you, as a fellow business owner, you having been in business much longer than I have in this case. So not on the side, my traditional job is not in software sales.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so big difference in kind of my world. But when I made the decision to go into business for myself and do this, I very much saw it as I want to offer something that I'm not necessarily seeing within this. I want to bring my unique skill sets into this realm. And over the years, I've had both my parents were entrepreneurs. So I've seen both the really positive sides of that, but I've also seen, I grew up during the '01 and '08 crashes and what that means for people who are entrepreneurs, where you really, pardon the term, but this is the term my parents always use, you eat what you kill in this case of
Yeah,
like, there could be really,
that's true.
great years, they could be really lean years. And so I never wanted to go into business for myself unless I was providing a unique opportunity into a niche market where, it wasn't doing what everybody else is doing, because that's not how you sustain yourself from a
It's
long
boring.
term. Exactly. It's
Yeah,
boring.
and it also like something that a lot of people forget because again, like I think a lot of and I just obviously there's in the mer community there seems to be a lot of female appearing or presenting as well as female performers. I think that also as women we need to encourage women to take risks
Yes.
because I see a lot more women in their efforts to fit in try to mimic what they see. And if you mimic what you see, that's like a child learning to draw. You do that when you are learning to draw. When you are an artist, you need to create your own content and your own stuff. And you honestly shouldn't be, copying someone else's artwork and then selling it as your own because that's ethically wrong. And you don't understand why that person made those creative decisions because you are not them. You did not have that lived experience. And so something will always be missing because you will never be as good as the original. But the best thing you can do is be your original, authentic self and find your own voice and then find your own market that wants your voice. Because every market's not going to want everyone, and that's okay. But there is a market for everyone if you put the work in and you find your people. And, in mermaids, there's such an incredibly broad variety of all different kinds of people. And I think that people need to remember that a bit more and have the faith in themselves and the trust in themselves and the respect for themselves that it is okay to fail.
Yeah.
And don't let other people make you feel bad about failing. We all make mistakes. I've made some terrible mistakes in my life. And I've learned from every single one. And I've learned a lot about the world from everyone, which then comes and makes me a better person and a better business owner and a better boss. And the boss I am today is nowhere what I started when I had no experience years ago. And, that then reflects in the stability of my team, the happiness of my people, the fact that they take care of each other, as well as our long-term relationships. Because also in this industry, you can't just rip somebody else off and be around long term, because someone's going to know about that and someone's going to doubt your own ethics. And in a industry, especially that sometimes works with children, your ethics and your morality and your conduct and your behind the scenes behavior, it will always surface. So you have to be really, really careful about that and just, be authentic, try to be honest. And when you can, be kind, and if you can't be kind, well, then stop talking.
Yeah. I think you hit on another nail in the head of, taking risks. I think in the society we live in, and especially as women and, people who have been othered by society, we have been feel like we've been pigeonholed into these very specific areas. And so if you seeing someone doing, what was in the normal consciousness, you mirror it and you don't really question it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's one of the most exciting things in your life when you start saying, okay, I'm willing to do things that are a little bit different than what I see from society. It can be small steps. It doesn't have
Mm-hmm.
to be a whole life-changing thing overnight, but you get braver as you continue to make those small incremental steps. There's a great book that one of my mentors had me read years ago. It's called Deep Survival, and it's in survival situations why some people survive and some people don't. And it's
Mm-hmm.
basically the message of it. It's about small incremental wins every day. They call it a chunking method. There was a gentleman who, fell down a mountain, broke his legs, and he promised himself he would climb 10 feet a day. And you know what? He got
That's
himself that,
amazing.
right?
Wow.
But that's
Wow.
the thing is we forget about like small wins add up. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to be a big change overnight. And when you start taking risks to live a life that is truly going to make your light up, because I think that's one of the things we can't help light up the world unless we are truly living in alignment with ourselves. And so one of the most exciting things about this time, if we're age of Aquarius and everything that's happening on the cataclysmic shifts, which means, we're going through stressful times as well as really exciting ones, is that we as women and people who have been othered are waking up and saying we don't have to live the lives in the way that the world has aligned for us. And so one of the most beautiful things and things I love about talking with people on this podcast is showing you can create your life. You can
Yes.
truly design it in a way that is copacetic and deeply aligned with what nourishes you, excites you, makes you passionate, that makes you wake up, not maybe not every single morning, but, make up with a smile to say, I'm so grateful to be in my body and in this space and have the opportunity to have this new day because nothing is promised. And so I really love this opportunity to connect with people and really understand how different people are exploring the world, experiencing the world, and bring their light to the world in different ways. And that's one
Yeah.
of the big things that I love about the mermaid community. And like any community, we have some challenges, like with anything. But I think when people choose to show up radically authentic to themselves, and with that, put light out in the world that is truly unique to them, whether that inspires or whether that allows people, from an artistry perspective to be in their artistry, whether that's tops, tails, crowns, whatnot,
Mhm.
or just, see it and be able to experience it within that play perspective. We're all moving chips around in changing out not just our world, but other people's worlds. And who would have thought 50 years ago, 100 years ago, that, you know, there would be this group of people that would be changing things so dramatically. And while there are plenty of negatives on social media, I think it's one of the most beautiful things to be able to bring communities together. And so
Mhm.
I'm so grateful that we have the opportunity to show these different pieces and connect no matter where we are in the world. So my
Mhm.
question back to you is this is, you mentioned how the first 5 years have gone, first 5 years of being within this industry have gone. How about
Mhm.
like say the last five, which obviously includes the time of, the new Little Mermaid reboot, the Netflix
Mhm.
documentary and whatnot. And how do you feel like that's changed or amplified the engagement you're getting from people?
That's a great question. When we're talking again about product life cycle, again, I really look at this from a business perspective. And there are societal trends, there's pandemics in the middle of it, there's all different kinds of things that happen. Something that is, again, it's part of a trend. You have this massive surge, and then you have a tapering off of a ton of people, and then lots of people like fight over the crumbs, and then the people that are actually smart enough to fish in their own fishing hole, you know, unique, they do pretty well. And then all of a sudden, it's saturation on market and it drops off. And I think again, when you're looking at the lifespan of a product cycle, you're really seeing that over, since about like 2010 to present day. So I think that there are contributing factors for sure, but I think it's just a normal evolution in many cases of what a product goes through. And it just is, different things, like punk bands or like hippie beads. They all had a product life cycle. Like it's just business. What I think has been something that was, really interesting to see is when things get hard, when things, whether there's lack of work or hashtag pandemic happen, you also see who really, really wants to be there. And for others that it's just time for them to find a new journey. And during the pandemic, which was just so hard on everyone, and for all the people that had so much loss in so many areas of their lives, for the entire world, and a lot of people had to make the decision about, am I going to continue doing something? Does it still serve me? And I think for many people, obviously, it was so traumatic, but there were also some very important questions raised. And some of those questions were, where do I want to spend my time and resources? And the people that were company owners that lasted through the pandemic, it was very interesting to be a company owner at that time because I work with many different industries, not just mermaiding. What you saw was it was the company owners, we were out doing the jobs because we had to keep the lights on. Had to, in my case, I really care about my people. I like to stand up for my people. I like to take care of the people. I like to do things ethically. So that
Yeah.
meant if I needed to make sure my people had food, I was personally arranging a delivery. If I needed to make sure that they had every form they needed for unemployment insurance so they could get paid, so they could help survive, I was doing that. That also meant that there was not a lot of work for obvious reasons. And I was one of the first cases in the United States to have COVID. I was at the very beginning of it. I already had gotten through that and all the side effects as the rest of the world was starting to realize what this thing was. I was in
Yeah.
a unique position, therefore, with natural immunity and having gone through it, where I could then be out more while adhering to legal restrictions and keep working. But the same thing was the same thing of I saw so many company owners I have not seen in years because most of us at a certain point in life, we have an amazing team. We trust them. They're well trained. They do a good job. We move more to operations and strategy and they go out unless it's a very important client. All of us were out working. And it was actually kind of amazing rebuilding those connections as a company owner because you don't get to see them in person. And
Mhm.
suddenly all of like the elite talent in each of these companies, they were also the ones out. So it was a remarkable time in a very dark time to be able to connect and learn and then really think about, okay, is this worth it? Like, do
Yeah.
you like this enough? Are you contributing enough? Is something satisfying your soul enough to keep doing this? Because if not, this is a great time to use it as an excuse and be like, I'm out, I'm leaving, I'm done. So sorry, pandemic. No
Yeah.
one's going to judge you for that. And the people and the companies that came out of the pandemic, and again, Sheroes Entertainment is run very well as a company. I have a very, very solid background in business and business and operational strategy. And I very much am very in tune with global trends and I study in detail a lot of different facets that people simply aren't interested in normally that help me to guide my company. We came out of the pandemic okay. And I was able to offer to rehire if I had not already, not let them go, my entire team. And my entire team with a couple of people that still had to work through some psychological trauma from the pandemic
Yeah.
came back. And then we had to rebuild a company. We had to think about how do we now serve a community that has been traumatized, a society has been broken. And children at that time had been told and psychologically brainwashed that people were going to kill them by being around them. We had children that normally would be neuronormative crying in a fetal position at parties because they couldn't handle it. And we had to serve an intermediary bridge between our parents and our clients and these children of helping them to be okay with humans again. And that was something I'd never expect to go through in my life, nor to be a tool for that purpose. But, stuff like that, once we got out of that, then of course people are starting to do conventions again and like amazing like gift exchanges again. And it's nice to see things return to normality. But, again, product life cycle, I'd say COVID really changed the face of the entire world. The world is not going to go back to where it was pre-COVID, in my experience, unless it's like 50 years down the line. Hopefully we don't have more pandemics. But it was so fascinating during that time of watching the mermaid community evolve. And then, who's still here and why. And then sometimes also the more level heads I saw many times in the COVID pandemic were very quiet because they didn't want to be online lynch mobbed about saying something that somebody would just start an entire outrage about. But a lot of us company owners started really talking to each other. And that I think was something very, very good because a lot of the company owners, you also typically will not see a big company owner be very vocal online. I don't know if anyone else sees that, but there's going to be some incredible experts in this community that just don't want to have to argue, don't want to have good conversations, and they're the quiet voices. And being able to tap into those quiet voices and really see who is still there, and then have that curiosity and just reach out, have a conversation, have a phone call because everyone's trapped in their houses, I think was one of the few benefits out of the entire experience.
What do you think the next 5 years is going to hold for the mermaid community?
That's a great question. I think it's going to again be a time of stability. I think it's going to be a prime time where, especially based on what the entire global economy, it's not just an American thing. I am an American, clearly. The global economy and the global axes of power are dramatically shifting. And there's a lot of trends coming up in the next 10 years that are going to directly impact all of our lives. When we're talking about a global macroeconomic scale, there's a lot of things also coming from the pandemic where a lot of enormous corporations and multinationals overextended their credit. A lot of people gave out too many different loans that were never paid back. There's been a lot of leveraging of our banking systems all around the world. That means that no matter where you are, you're going to have to look at your clients as being more discerning and being very careful where they spend their money. That means you need to offer something that is going to solve a problem for them or give them something that they value. Otherwise, they will not book with you. So I'm going to see, in my estimates, just again, as a numbers nerd, someone that really is tapped into global news, not just American news. I would expect to see people that are just trying to do the average are going to race to the bottom on prices, which is going to be a problem for all of us that are trying to actually connect our lives ethically, because it's very expensive to run a legal company. But then also, I'm going to expect to see a bit of a weeding out of community members that are trying to go pro that just simply won't be offering something that people want. Those that offer something that people want, there might be less work, but I do always believe a true independent thinker and independent entrepreneur, someone that's clever, someone that understands business, someone that does business ethically and honestly and tries to take care of their client, there's always going to be a place for that person in the world if they're creative. So I'd see it's going to be a little bit of a renaissance, perhaps less work all the way around, but at the same time, a refinement, which again, long term, I could see as being very, very good for encouraging some people to enhance their own abilities, to really come into their own full self, should they accept that challenge, and driving their own art forward.
One of the things, again, as a business owner, and actually one of the courses that's going to be on the website is Business 101. And I talked to so many mermaids where, while they understand intellectually, like, hey, it could be a good decision to start an LLC, or, you
Mhm.
want to keep track of all your expenses from a tax perspective to, maximize, whatever you're end up paying on at the end of the day to the IRS, other country we're talking about from a tax perspective. It is so important from that. If you're going to have, in theory, that refinement, that you get smarter on those type of ways to make sure not only is your business operating in the most efficient way possible, but how are you making each dollar stretch? On a complete side note of other things, I am a super finance nerd, Virginia, and
Yeah,
there's
we probably
another
will
part.
bond over this. And I'm like, you
I
ever seen the
know.
spreadsheet? Yeah.
I know. But it's so funny because there are so much basic levels about financial foundations that people have, no awareness of. And yes, there is a ton of information out there, but they don't know where to start. And so I think that this gives people, it forces people into an opportunity to start activating their business in different ways that they previously hadn't done because they have to make their money work more for you. It's kind of like I constantly am telling people, like, don't leave your money, especially performers, sitting in a checking or a savings account that's getting 0.01%. You need to be having that money work for you every single day, whether that's, putting it into a CD, whether it's putting it into a money market account, or if we're talking about, IRAs, Roths,
Of
whether
course.
we're talking about brokerage accounts, et cetera, you know, want what you're creating to be able to continue to reap benefits for you.
Mhm.
And yes, as performers, is yes, you can monetize through videos, etc., but you want to be smarter about it. It's kind of like when we talk about breath work and just even starting from that mermaid journey of not, pushing yourself to the limit where you're going to black out. Because again, you have to be aware, yes, the mammalian effect allows you to stay underwater longer, but you also have to understand, say, if you're, I know for me, my ears are constantly an issue where I just can't breathe
For a
below
lot of women,
15.
they are.
Exactly. And if I were to push myself, I would cause irreparable damage to myself. And I have to be smarter about how I approach it. That doesn't mean I can't still enjoy the community in really
Mhm.
amazing ways, but that just means, I will never be a professional mermaid. I will never be able to get some of those amazing deep water shots in addition to any of the videos you'll see me in Virginia. My butt starts floating up. It's something where I have to be weighted down, and you just understand those
Well,
limitations.
all
And
of
so,
us do. We're just
right,
hiding them well.
yeah, it's always fun, but it's about working smarter, not harder in that case. Yes, I can keep kicking to get myself down harder,
No,
but
and I love the fact you've got a business course for mermaids. That is amazing that you're offering it because so many artists do not have business skills.
yeah,
And again, you need to do it honestly, you need to do it respectfully, you need to do it legally. If
yeah.
you do not do those things, there's always going to be a loophole and you could lose everything. And so you really have to, know your laws, know your labor laws, know your trademark rights. And just above all, like again, don't rip off other people's stuff, be kind to others and really serve the world. If you serve the world and you look for ways to do something that your clients want, not just what you want to do, your clients want, and you're flexible in that, like you can definitely do it with those business skills that you yourself are offering. So I'm so glad you're doing that. I think that's wonderful. And it's something that I would recommend everyone that doesn't have business skills, like go check it out. Like I bet you're going to learn quite a bit, especially because you like spreadsheets too.
You're so sweet. I appreciate it. Well, on that note, Virginia, thank you so much for being on today. I feel like we could talk for hours, and I
It's
want
been
to talk
such a
for.
pleasure.
I know. And actually, funny enough, I'm going to be in LA in a couple weeks, so I will
Come
coordinate with
visit.
you. Yeah, exactly. So
Yes.
So we'll be able to see each other in person again. But where can people find you if they want to either, detail or use any of your other services?
Yeah, absolutely. So the easiest way to find me online, because I again have a very quiet social media presence. It's hard to find me online, and that's deliberate. I like protecting my ideas and I like sharing them as I'm ready to. But the easiest way to find some of my work and honestly the most extraordinary people on my team is going to be on the Sheroes Entertainment website. That's like female heroes, Sheroes. We're also on Instagram. And then LA Mermaid School. If you are looking for production rentals, helping with water safety on set, we've got SAG, we've got non-SAG union workers. And we do everything from lifeguards to water doubles to tail rentals and everything in between, including training with the phenomenal Patty Mermaid program. I am so grateful. Have a beautiful day. And thank you everyone for tuning in and checking this out.
Thanks for hanging out with us on Mermaid Tales. I hope something here spoke to your heart. If it did, share it with a friend and come back soon. I've got so much more to tell you. I'm Cassandra, the founder of Be a Mermaid, and I'll catch you on the next wave.